The crystalline spires of the Galactic Assembly headquarters pierced the purple sky of Centauri Prime, their surfaces reflecting the light of three setting suns. Inside the Grand Chamber, Dr. Alina Blackwood stood before the Council of 12, her heart steady despite the countless alien eyes studying her with barely concealed disdain. The Xeralaxian representative, Ambassador Vexther, towered over the other council members, his iridescent scales shimming with barely contained agitation. Dr. Blackwood, Vexther's voice resonated through the chamber, each word dripping with condescension. You suggest that we, the Galactic Assembly, with our combined knowledge spanning 50,000 years, should consider your primitive theory about quantum field manipulation. Your species barely managed interstellar travel a century ago. Alina smiled, not out of humility or deference, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly what they were capable of. Her dark eyes, sharp with intelligence, met Vexther's gaze directly. With respect, Ambassador, sometimes the newest eyes see what ancient ones have overlooked. The resonance cascade approaching the Orion Arm threatens every civilization in its path. Your conventional methods have failed to slow its advance. The chamber erupted in murmurs. The resonance cascade, a phenomenon that defied the laws of physics as the galaxy understood them, had already consumed 3 star systems. Alina moved to the central projection platform, her movements deliberate and precise. With a gesture, she activated her holographic display, filling the chamber with a swirling visualization of quantum fields. We humans have something unique to offer, she continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. While you've spent millennia perfecting existing technologies, we've been forced to think differently, to adapt, to see patterns where others see chaos. My team's research suggests that the cascade isn't a natural phenomenon. It's a quantum echo of something far more ancient. Ambassador Krell of the Andromedans, their crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns, leaned forward. Explain this theory, Dr. Blackwood. What makes you believe humans could understand something we cannot? Alina's fingers danced through the hologram, manipulating the quantum fields with practiced ease. Because we're not bound by 50,000 years of scientific doctrine, we question everything, even our own assumptions. The cascade's pattern matches theoretical models we've developed for quantum communication across dimensional boundaries. Someone or something is trying to make contact, and they're accidentally tearing space apart in the process. Vexther's scales darkened with skepticism. And you believe you can prove this? I already have, Alina replied, pulling up another set of data streams. My team has detected microscopic reversals in the cascade's quantum signature. It's not just destroying, it's attempting to build something. We've developed a prototype that could potentially stabilize these attempts at communication. The council chamber fell silent as Alina's data scrolled across their neural interfaces. She could see the moment understanding began to dawn in their expressions. Even Vexther's rigid posture showed signs of uncertainty. Grand Counselor T-Lara, the eldest of the 12, spoke for the first time. Dr. Blackwood, what you propose would require resources beyond anything your species has access to. The energy requirements alone would be met by the quantum reactor we've developed, Alina interrupted, knowing she was breaking protocol but pressing on anyway. Yes, the same reactor your scientists claimed was theoretically impossible 6 months ago. We built it, tested it, and improved it. It's ready for full-scale implementation. The silence that followed was deafening. Alina could feel the weight of centuries of technological advancement bearing down on her, but she stood firm. This was humanity's moment to prove their worth, to show that innovation wasn't just about accumulating knowledge. It was about having the courage to challenge it. Even if what you say is true, Vexther said, his voice quieter now, the risks are far less than doing nothing, Alina finished. The cascade will reach the Xeralaxian home system in less than 6 months. Earth is next in line. We don't have the luxury of time for lengthy debates or peer reviews. We need to act now. Grand Counselor T-Lara raised a hand, silencing the growing murmurs. Dr. Blackwood, you realize that if you're wrong, the consequences could be catastrophic. Alina nodded, her expression grave but determined. And if I'm right, We save trillions of lives and possibly make first contact with a civilization advanced enough to communicate across dimensional boundaries. Sometimes, counselor, the greatest risk is not taking one at all. The council chambers erupted in discussion, countless species debating in their native tongues. Alina stood quietly, watching the holographic display of the Cascades approach. In her mind, she could already see the solution, a bridge between understanding and innovation, between the old and the new. She thought of her team back on Earth, Commander Marcus Wade coordinating the reactor tests, Dr. Raj Patel fine-tuning the quantum harmonics. They were ready. They had been ready for months. Finally, Tilara raised her hand again, bringing silence to the chamber. The council will recess to consider your proposal, Dr. Blackwood. But be warned, if we proceed, you will bear the responsibility for whatever comes next. Alina's response was simple, but carried the weight of humanity's potential. We're ready to show you exactly what we can do. As she left the chamber, Alina could feel the shift in the air. The dismissive glances had turned thoughtful, the condescension giving way to curiosity. They might still think humans were young, impulsive, and reckless, but for the first time they were beginning to wonder if that might not be exactly what the galaxy needed. The quantum reactor hummed beneath Earth's Antarctic ice, its rhythmic pulse matching the beat of Alina's heart as she studied the holographic readouts. Commander Marcus Wade stood at her side, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of the monitoring stations. 20 years of military service had left him with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing, especially when it came to his team's safety. The council gave us 2 weeks, Marcus said, his deep voice carrying a note of concern. 2 weeks to prove that all this works, or they'll proceed with their evacuation plans. Dr. Raj Patel looked up from his workstation, dark circles under his eyes betraying countless sleepless nights. His hands moved deftly over the quantum harmonics controls, making microscopic adjustments. They're evacuating anyway, he said. The Andromedans already started moving their outer colonies. Can't say I blame them. Alina's fingers traced patterns in the air, manipulating the holographic model of the resonance cascade. The quantum echo pulsed and swirled, its pattern increasingly familiar. Look at this, she called out, enlarging a particular section. The frequency shifts aren't random. There's a pattern here that reminds me of ancient stellar formations. Marcus and Raj gathered around her station as she overlaid star charts from various epochs. The correlation was subtle at first, but as Alina adjusted the temporal parameters, it became impossible to ignore. The Cascade's quantum signature matched perfectly with star patterns from over 1 million years ago. That's impossible, Raj whispered, but his voice held more excitement than doubt. Those stars haven't been in that configuration since before any known civilization arose in the galaxy. Unless, Alina's eyes lit up with realization, we're not dealing with a civilization that arose in our galaxy at all. What if they're not trying to communicate across dimensions, but across time itself? The chamber fell silent except for the steady hum of the reactor. The implications were staggering. Before anyone could respond, a new voice cut through their contemplation. An interesting theory, Dr. Blackwood. Perhaps humans are capable of more than mere primitive speculation after all. They turned to find Ambassador Vexther entering the laboratory, his towering form accompanied by 2 other Zeralaxian scientists. Their presence was unexpected. The council wasn't due to evaluate their progress for another 10 days. Ambassador, Alina acknowledged, straightening but refusing to be intimidated. You're early. Vexther's scales shifted to a deep blue, a color Alina had learned indicated intense focus. The Cascade's acceleration has increased. It will reach the Zeralaxian home system in 4 months, not 6. The council sent me to expedite our evaluation. Marcus stepped forward, positioning himself subtly between Alina and the Zeralaxians. With all due respect, Ambassador, we're in the middle of crucial calibrations. Any disruption could prove catastrophic, yes, Vexther finished. Which is precisely why we're here. Your quantum reactor defies our understanding of physics. We need to be certain it won't exacerbate the crisis. Alina shared a quick glance with Raj, who nodded almost imperceptibly. They had anticipated this. the Zeralaxian's fear masked as scientific concern. Ambassador, would you like to see how it works? Not just the surface readings, but the actual quantum harmonics. The Zeralaxian scientists behind Vexthor shifted eagerly, their scales flickering with barely contained curiosity. Vexthor hesitated, his ancient pride warring with desperate need. "Show me," he finally commanded. Alina gestured to Raj, who initiated the quantum visualization sequence. The air around them transformed into a three-dimensional representation of subatomic particles dancing in precise patterns. "What you're seeing isn't just energy manipulation," Alina explained. "We're creating a resonance field that matches the frequency of space-time itself." She moved through the display, her hands conducting an invisible orchestra of quantum possibilities. Traditional physics says this shouldn't be possible, that you can't synchronize quantum states across macro-scale distances. But we discovered something. Space-time isn't just a fabric, it's a language. And like any language, it can be learned, spoken, and answered. One of the Zeralaxian scientists, unable to contain themselves, stepped forward. "The energy requirements alone are managed through quantum entanglement cascades," Raj interrupted, pulling up another set of equations. "We're not generating the energy, we're borrowing it from space-time itself and returning it in the same moment. The net energy cost is virtually zero." Vexthor's scales had shifted to a color Alina had never seen before, a deep purple that seemed to absorb light. This changes everything we thought we knew about quantum mechanics." "That's what we've been trying to tell you," Alina said softly. "Sometimes the greatest discoveries come from those who don't know what's supposed to be impossible." The ambassador was silent for a long moment, studying the quantum dance before him. Finally, he turned to Alina. "You said the cascade matches ancient star patterns. Show me." For the next several hours, they worked together, human intuition and creativity combining with Zeralaxian knowledge and experience. The ancient star charts took on new meaning as they overlaid quantum signatures and temporal data. Pattern after pattern emerged, each one strengthening Alina's theory. "It's a beacon," Vexthor finally said, his voice filled with wonder. "Not a weapon or an accident, but a beacon left by someone who knew we would eventually be able to see it." "Not just see it," Alina corrected, "answer it. The cascade is destroying systems because we're not responding correctly. It's like a knock on a door that's slowly breaking down the wall because no one knows how to open it." Marcus, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "Then let's answer it. We have the quantum reactor, we understand the pattern. What's stopping us?" "The Council," Vexthor said, but his tone had changed. Gone was the condescension, replaced by something approaching respect. "They will need to be convinced. The risks are already here," Alina finished. "Ambassador, we don't need the Council's permission to run more tests. We just need them not to stop us. Will you help?" The quantum reactor's hum seemed to grow louder in the silence that followed. Finally, Vexthor's scales settled into a determined gold. "Show me what you need." As they turned back to their work, Alina caught Marcus's slight smile. They had done more than prove their theory. They had begun to bridge a gap between species that had seemed insurmountable. Now they just had to save the galaxy to prove they were right. The Galactic Assembly's emergency session erupted into chaos as Alina's findings were presented. The vast chamber, usually a model of cosmic diplomacy, had devolved into a storm of accusations and fear. Species that had coexisted peacefully for millennia now faced off against each other, divided by a single question. Could they trust humans with the fate of the galaxy? "This is madness." The Centaurian delegate's crystalline form vibrated with anger, sending rainbow refractions across the chamber. "You expect us to believe that primitive humans have not only understood this threat, but can communicate with beings that existed 1,000,000 years ago." Alina stood at the center of the maelstrom, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos around her. Ambassador Vexthor surprisingly stood beside her. "I have seen their work firsthand," he announced, his scales gleaming with conviction. "Their quantum reactor functions beyond our theoretical models. Their insights into the cascade's patterns are threatening everything we know," interrupted Delegate MZXX of the Silicon Collective. their metallic voice grating through the universal translators. How convenient that these humans appear with their impossible solutions just as we face our greatest crisis. Commander Marcus Wade, standing at the chamber's edge with Raj, muttered under his breath, "Convenient for whom? We're all dead if we do nothing." Elena raised her hand, and somehow the simple human gesture cut through the tumult. "Distinguished delegates, I understand your fears, but while we debate, the cascade continues its advance. 3 more systems have begun showing quantum disturbances. We don't have time for politics." The chamber's central hologram activated, displaying the latest data from the outer colonies. The cascade's progress was undeniable, its quantum signature now visible across a quarter of the Orion arm. But something had changed, new patterns were emerging. "Look," Elena commanded, enlarging a section of the display. "The quantum harmonics are shifting. Whatever intelligence left this beacon, they're responding to our attempts at communication. The reactor tests have gotten their attention." The Andromedan representative, their crystalline form pulsing with internal light, floated forward. "This is true. Our quantum sensors have detected the changes. The human's theory about temporal communication appears to be correct." A new wave of murmurs swept through the chamber, but before Elena could continue, alarms blared throughout the complex. Red emergency lights bathed the chamber in an ominous glow. "Security breach in Laboratory Complex 7, an automated voice announced. "Quantum containment protocols engaging." Elena's heart stopped. That was their lab, the reactor. "Marcus," she called out, already running for the exit. Her commander was right behind her, with Raj close on their heels. As they raced through the corridors, Elena's mind raced through possibilities. The reactor was stable. They had triple-checked every safety protocol. A breach could only mean. They burst into the lab to find it in chaos. Emergency force fields crackled around the reactor core, but that wasn't what made Elena's blood run cold. The quantum harmonics display showed clear signs of tampering. Someone had tried to destabilize the entire system. "Stop right there," Marcus's voice boomed as a shadow moved near the secondary controls. A figure in environmental protection gear froze, then bolted for a side exit. Marcus launched himself forward, tackling the intruder with military precision. As they struggled, Elena and Raj worked frantically to stabilize the reactor. "The harmonics are out of phase," Raj reported, his fingers flying over the controls. "They tried to reverse the quantum polarity if they had succeeded." "The reactor would have created a localized quantum singularity," Elena finished grimly, "taking out half the continent and destabilizing the entire project." Security forces flooded the lab, led by none other than Ambassador Vexter himself. The intruder was quickly subdued, and when their helmet was removed, Elena was shocked to recognize one of the Centaurian delegates' own scientific advisors. "Why," Elena demanded, approaching the captured saboteur, "why try to destroy our only chance?" The Centaurian's crystalline face showed no remorse. "Better a quick death than surrendering our galaxy to human control. You're too young, too reckless. This power should not be in your hands." "This isn't about control," Elena insisted, her voice rising with passion. "This is about survival, about understanding something so vast and ancient that it requires all of us working together. Your fear would doom us all." Vexter stepped forward, his massive form casting shadows in the emergency lighting. "The Council must know of this. Attempted sabotage of a project of this magnitude." "No," Elena said suddenly, surprising everyone. "We don't have time for more political fallout. What we need is to complete our work." "Dr. Blackwood," Vexter's scales shifted to a questioning blue, "this attack cannot go unpunished." "The only punishment that matters is failure," Elena replied, turning back to the reactor controls. "Every moment we waste on blame is a moment lost in solving this puzzle. Ambassador, I need your help convincing the Council to give us full autonomy. No more oversight committees, no more delays." The lab fell silent except for the hum of the reactor, now returning to its stable rhythm. Vexter studied Elena for a long moment, his ancient eyes seeing something that perhaps even he didn't expect. "The Council will resist," he said finally. The Council won't have a choice, Marcus interjected, still keeping a watchful eye on the security team removing the saboteur. The cascade just reached the outer edges of the Centaurian system. We're out of time. Elena looked around the lab, at her human colleagues, at the Xeralaxian ambassador who had become an unlikely ally, at the quantum reactor that represented humanity's greatest achievement, and perhaps the galaxy's only hope. Then let's make every moment count, she said, her voice filled with determination. Raj, begin the full power-up sequence. Marcus, I need security protocols upgraded. Ambassador, get me a direct line to the Council. We're done asking for permission. It's time to show them what humanity can really do. As they rushed to their tasks, Elena caught her reflection in a darkened screen, tired, determined, and carrying the weight of not just humanity but all sentient life. The sabotage attempt had made one thing clear. Their greatest obstacle wasn't the cascade itself, but the fear of change that lurked in the hearts of all species, human and alien alike. The reactor's hum increased, its quantum harmonics aligning with the ancient patterns hidden in spacetime itself. Somewhere out there, across 1,000,000 years, someone was waiting for an answer. Elena intended to make sure they got one. Streams of quantum data filled the laboratory's holographic display as Elena worked, her fingers dancing through the ethereal numbers and symbols. The reactor had been running at full power for 72 hours straight, sending carefully modulated signals into the fabric of spacetime itself. Behind her, Marcus kept watch while Raj coordinated with the Andromedan quantum specialists who had joined their effort. There's something different in the Cascade's response pattern, Elena announced, her voice tight with exhaustion and excitement. The temporal signatures are shifting. It's like they're trying to focus on our signal. The Andromedan scientist, whose crystalline form Elena now knew as First Light at Dawn, moved closer to the display. The quantum resonance is strengthening. Your reactor's harmony has caught their attention. A sudden surge of energy pulsed through the quantum field, causing the holographic displays to flare brilliantly. Warning signals blared, but Elena's hands were already moving, adjusting the reactor's output to match the new frequency. That's not random interference, she breathed, watching the patterns evolve. That's language, mathematical language. The numbers flowing across the display began to organize themselves, forming complex geometric patterns that shifted and evolved with deliberate precision. Raj rushed to his station, his dark eyes wide with realization. Elena, look at this. The patterns, they're not just mathematical constants. They're coordinates. Stellar coordinates, but in a configuration I've never seen before. Ambassador Vexther, who had barely left the laboratory since the sabotage attempt, moved to study the data. His scales shifted through shades of blue and gold as understanding dawned. These are star positions, but not from any known era. This is a map of the galaxy as it will be. Not will be, Elena corrected, her voice barely a whisper. As it must be. Her fingers flew over the controls, overlaying the current star charts with the quantum-encoded map. The difference was striking. Vast regions of space shifted and transformed, creating new patterns, new harmonies. The cascade isn't a weapon or even just a beacon, she continued, the pieces finally falling into place. It's a warning. The galaxy's current configuration is unstable. In about 10,000 years, gravitational forces will trigger a chain reaction of stellar collisions. Entire sectors will become uninhabitable. Marcus stepped forward, his military training evident in his precise question. How many would die? Billions, Vexther answered, his scales darkening. Perhaps trillions across hundreds of species. Unless, Elena's voice grew stronger, more certain, unless we change it now. The quantum signatures we're receiving, they're not just showing us the problem, they're showing us the solution. She manipulated the holographic display, highlighting specific stellar bodies. These ancient beings discovered a way to subtly alter the quantum state of specific stars, changing their gravitational influence over millions of years. They're not trying to communicate with us because we're special. They're reaching out because we're in the right place at the right time to implement these changes. First Light at Dawn pulsed with sudden understanding. The reactor, your quantum harmonics technology, could be modified to affect stellar quantum states, Raj finished, already running calculations. We wouldn't need to move stars physically, just adjust their quantum resonance by a fraction and over thousands of years. The galaxy would naturally shift into a stable configuration, Alina completed. That's why they left the beacon. They knew eventually some species would develop the right technology at the right moment to prevent the catastrophe. The laboratory fell silent as the implications sank in. The fate of not just their own civilizations, but countless future species, rested on their ability to precisely manipulate the quantum states of multiple stars across vast distances. It's never been attempted at this scale, Vexter said, but his tone held more awe than doubt. We've never had a reason to try, Alina replied. She turned to face her unlikely team, humans, Xeralaxians, Andromedans, all united by a challenge that transcended their differences. But now we do. Marcus stepped forward, his tactical mind already at work. The Cascade's acceleration, it's not random, is it? The changes have to be implemented within a specific temporal window. The window is closing, First Light at Dawn confirmed, their crystalline form pulsing with urgent frequencies. By our calculations, we have less than 30 hours before the opportunity passes. Alina straightened, feeling the weight of galaxies yet to come resting on their next decisions. Then we have no choice but to succeed. Raj, start modifying the reactor's output protocols. Marcus will need coordinated access to every major telescope array in local space. First Light at Dawn, your people's quantum sensing technology will be crucial for monitoring the stellar responses. She turned to Vexter, seeing in his ancient eyes the same determination she felt. Ambassador, we need the Council's approval for this. Not because we want their permission, but because we'll need every civilization's help to implement these changes properly. Vexter's scales shifted to a deep gold, a color Alina had learned meant absolute resolution. You shall have it. Even the most conservative members cannot ignore proof this absolute. He paused, then added with what might have been the Xeralaxian equivalent of a smile. Though I suspect you would find a way to proceed even without their blessing. That's what humans do, Marcus said with a grim smile. We find a way. Alina turned back to the quantum display, watching the mathematical language of an ancient civilization dance before her eyes. They had spent so long believing the Cascade was a threat, only to discover it was the key to saving countless future generations. The universe, it seemed, had a poetry all its own. Begin preparations, she commanded, her voice carrying the strength of certainty. We have 30 hours to change the destiny of an entire galaxy. Let's make them count. As her diverse team rushed to their stations, Alina allowed herself a moment to appreciate the irony. The species that had been dismissed as too young, too reckless, too primitive, was about to help orchestrate one of the most sophisticated and far-reaching scientific endeavors in galactic history. Sometimes, she reflected, the greatest advantages came not from age or advancement, but from having the audacity to attempt the impossible. The quantum reactor's hum deepened, its energy pulsing in harmony with signals from across time itself. They had solved the puzzle, understood the message. Now came the hard part, proving that humanity's greatest strength wasn't just its ability to survive, but its power to ensure the survival of others. The vast chamber of the Galactic Assembly had been transformed into an operations center, unlike any seen before in the history of known space. Representatives from every major civilization worked side by side, their differences forgotten in the face of their monumental task. At the center of it all stood Alina, her eyes fixed on the massive holographic display showing hundreds of stellar bodies marked for quantum manipulation. Quantum resonance networks synchronized, Raj reported from his station, his voice steady despite the exhaustion of 20 straight hours of preparation. All participating civilizations report ready status. Alina nodded, feeling the weight of countless lives, present and future, resting on their next actions. The Andromedan quantum arrays, the Xeralaxian energy networks, and thousands of other systems were now linked to their central reactor, creating a web of possibility that spanned the galaxy. Time to stellar alignment, "45 minutes," Marcus announced, his military precision a comforting anchor in the chaos of coordination. "The window will be open for exactly 17 minutes." Ambassador Vexter approached Alina, his scales shimmering with colors she had never seen before, perhaps emotions his species rarely had cause to express. "The Council has agreed. All power is yours to command, Dr. Blackwood. The galaxy's fate rests in human hands." Alina allowed herself a small smile. "Not just human hands, Ambassador. This is something no single species could accomplish alone." She turned to address the assembled representatives, her voice carrying across the chamber. "What we attempt today transcends all our differences. We're not just saving our own civilizations, we're ensuring a future for species that haven't yet evolved, for civilizations that will arise on worlds we'll never know." First Light at Dawn's crystalline form pulsed with agreement. "The quantum signatures are strengthening, the ancient ones they're watching." Alina moved to the central control interface, her fingers hovering over the holographic commands. "Begin primary sequence. All stations, prepare for quantum cascade initialization." The chamber hummed with energy as thousands of systems came online simultaneously. Through the vast windows, the stars themselves seemed to pulse in anticipation. The reactor's harmony deepened, resonating with frequencies that hadn't been heard in the galaxy for 1 million years. "First target cluster responding," Raj called out. "Quantum state shifting, established, pattern holds." One by one, stars across the galaxy began to shift their quantum signatures, each change minute but precise. It was like conducting an orchestra whose music would play out across millennia. Alina's hands moved with practiced certainty, guiding the process she had dreamed of but never truly believed would come to pass. Suddenly, warning signals flared across multiple displays. "Quantum fluctuation in Sector 7, an operator shouted. "The resonance is destabilizing." Alina's mind raced. This was the moment where everything could fall apart. The quantum harmonics were delicate, interconnected. A failure in one sector could cascade through the entire network. They hadn't come this far to fail now. "Raj, reroute power from the secondary arrays," she commanded. "Marcus, coordinate with the Centaurian stations to stabilize that sector." Her fingers flew across the controls, adjusting frequencies with intuitive precision that defied the supposed limitations of human capability. "It's not enough," First Light at Dawn warned. "The quantum breach is spreading." Alina felt time slow as she studied the patterns before her. In that moment, she saw something that all the advanced civilizations, with their millennia of accumulated knowledge, had missed. The destabilization wasn't a flaw, it was part of the pattern. "Don't fight it," she announced, her voice cutting through the panic. "Everyone, shift your frequencies to match the fluctuation. The ancient ones, they built this into the system. It's not a malfunction, it's a harmonic key." For a terrible moment, no one moved. Then Vexter's voice rang out, "Do as she says now." Across the galaxy, thousands of operators adjusted their systems, following Alina's lead. The quantum resonance shifted, transformed, and suddenly, beautifully, stabilized into a pattern more perfect than any they had achieved in testing. "Quantum harmony achieved," Raj reported, his voice filled with wonder. "All stellar bodies responding, the changes, they're permanent." A cheer erupted through the chamber, representatives from 1,000 worlds celebrating together. But Alina's attention was fixed on something else, a new pattern emerging in the quantum field. Mathematical symbols, more complex and elegant than any they had seen before, began flowing across their displays. "They're responding," First Light at Dawn announced. "The ancient ones, they're acknowledging our success." The message was brief but clear, translated simultaneously into every known language. "The future is preserved. Well done, young ones." As the quantum fields settled into their new configuration, Alina finally allowed herself to breathe. She felt a hand on her shoulder and turned to find Marcus smiling. "Not bad for a primitive species, huh?" Ambassador Vexter approached, his scales now a deep, respectful gold. "Dr. Blackwood, Alina, you have taught us all something today. Age does not equal wisdom, and the newest eyes often see what ancient ones have forgotten." We all did this together, Alina replied, but she stood a little straighter, feeling the pride of not just personal achievement but of representing humanity's potential. Though I have to admit, it feels good to exceed expectations. The Grand Counselor stepped forward, calling for silence. Today marks more than just a scientific achievement. It marks the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization. Humanity has proven itself not just capable, but essential to our shared future. The ancient being turned to Alina. Your species will have a permanent seat on the council. It is time for new perspectives in our governance. Alina looked out at the assembled beings, former skeptics now allies, ancient rivals now partners in preservation. The quantum reactor hummed quietly, its work done but its potential now undeniable. Humanity had not just saved the galaxy, they had changed it forever. So, Marcus said with a grin, what impossible thing should we try next? Alina laughed, feeling the infinite possibility of the moment. They had rewritten the future of the galaxy, bridged the gap between countless civilizations, and proved that humanity's greatest strength was not its technology or even its determination, but its ability to see hope where others saw only chaos. First, she said, I need a cup of coffee, then we see what other messages the universe has left for us to find. The stars twinkled outside, their quantum signatures now carrying the promise of a future that would unfold across millions of years. Humanity had taken its place among the stars not by force or by age, but by daring to dream beyond the possible. And that, Alina knew, was just the beginning.